Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles. Let's talk about the FBI, okay? Here is a sting that the FBI did, and they caught this guy that was planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue in Ohio. You need to read through this. This is from the Department of Justice website. If you go to the Department of Justice website and you look at the press releases, a lot of times they'll have some of this stuff. But I wanted to start out with this because this was something that the FBI did. They set this up so they could get this guy. And while we may rant and rave about James Comey and Andrew McCabe and some of those others who were involved in the cover-up of Hillary Clinton's email scandal, there are a lot of people in the FBI that are doing a doggone good job and they are keeping us safe. And I wanted to point that out. There's something interesting that I think we need to be aware of. And if you read through this, it's actually very detailed and it talks all about what they did, the steps they took, and what the guy did, and how they had the entire case unfold because they had been working with him and he kind of trusted them. So he told them a lot of stuff. And if you go through this, it's really an interesting read, actually. So I'm going to put that link down below, just like usual. But the main focus of this one is the FBI Vault. And before we get to that, I want to talk about the Freedom of Information or Privacy Act. There is something called the Freedom of Information Act. It is typically referred to as FOIA, F-O-I-A, and this allows regular American citizens to be able to see a lot of government documents. How can you put in for it? Well, I've got news for you. Here's the website. The link will be down below. You can go here and you can actually ask for FBI documents. Now, they can't obviously give you everything, and some of the stuff you get may be redacted, but there is a possibility that you'll get things. This is what Judicial Watch does, and this is what some of the Anons have started doing. They're trying to get this information, little bits and pieces here and there. Things come out. Well, the FBI does have something called the Vault. And the Vault is where a lot of FOIA requests that have been made, they've put it out in this information. In fact, there's 6,700 documents in this Vault. And you can look through them. They span quite a range. If you look over here, you can see some of the Vault links. These are different ones that you can go to: anti-war, civil rights, counterterrorism, fugitives, gangster era. Yeah, from the 1920s. That's really interesting. I have a friend who's working on some gangster poetry, believe it or not, and she's very interested in that. So I said, hey, here, go to the FBI Vault. You can find information about the gangsters. Yes, they have documents about Capone and everybody there, so it's very interesting to read. And there's all these others: organized crimes, political figure events, Supreme Court. There wasn't much there on the Supreme Court. Public corruption, unexplained phenomena, and so forth. So lots of interesting things. World War II even. I mean, you can just go through and you can look for the stuff, and if you find something that maybe you want some more about, again, you can put in a FOIA request for yourself if you want to on that previous page. Anyway, let's look at some of the things that I found when I was going through this. First of all, they have a recently added, and these are the things from the recently added. This one right here was one that I pulled up. Just a second. And it is about Anthony Weiner's laptop. But all this is a letter, kind of a short letter, that this particular agent put down. And he said, just putting this on the record because of the optics of this case. Now, this was back, this is dated, let me check. This is dated 10/5/2016. So this is before the election. Okay? And basically he just says, during the course of my review of a computer seized from Anthony Weiner, a seizure and search of which was authorized by an SDNY, that'd be Southern District, New York, search warrant, I encountered approximately at least 340,000 emails stored on the computer. The large number of emails appears to be a result of a mail client program installed on that computer, such as Outlook, that pulled emails from servers belonging to both Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin. Now, he goes on, he just basically says, I can't read any of them because that's not what my warrant authorized me to be able to do. But I did notice they are there. All I can look for is the child porn. That's what he was specifically tasked to be able to do according to that warrant. So he wasn't able to go through any of the other stuff. He says, I just wanted to formally bring this to your attention due to the pending election, the ongoing congressional investigation into the FBI's own investigation into Ms. Clinton's email activities, etc. So that's basically all he said. This was his signature, whoever it was, he or she, we don't know. But that was this particular document. It was kind of interesting. I'd be really interested to know about the date here and to compare that to what Comey was saying. But it seems to me it was a lot later than that he said he first knew that there were emails on there. I thought it was like right before the election. I mean, just a few days. So I don't know. That would be something interesting to compare. Those are the kinds of things the Anons like looking at. And then another one that I found was about Uranium One. Look at all this. This is the reason for withholding. A lot of this is redacted, and here's their codes for why they were redacting it and the page reference where it was redacted. I don't know what those codes necessarily mean. I'm sure they refer to something. Maybe there's a document out there that says it, but I don't know. So I'm going to skip down here. And this just starts talking about the whole Uranium One thing. If you don't know about Uranium One, this might be a document you want to go through and check out, because Uranium One has a lot of the main players that we're going to be seeing come on stage. Yeah. Because this was a huge thing and it touched a lot of people and they were all involved in it, selling off our uranium to Russia. And so if you really want Russia collusion, if you're very interested in that, Uranium One. That was the thing. And this is a letter from one of the senators, and there's another letter, and then there's an article from the New York Times too that you can read on that. And it talks about what was going on at the time and who the people were. So this is Jeb Hensarling. I'm not familiar with him, but he was the chairman of the Committee on Financial Services. And Maxine Waters was the ranking member. So I don't know, read through it. It was interesting to read. He was putting out information a long time before this. In 2010, I believe, is when he first noticed it. And he wrote a letter saying, this is what I'm seeing. This needs to be investigated. You know, sometimes we as regular people don't know what goes on in Congress. And we think, oh, well, those Republicans, they've been sitting there. They had the House. For how long have they had the House? Remember, we got it in 2010. Why couldn't we get things done? Well, they were doing things. The problem is, and this is why we haven't seen arrests yet, so listen carefully. We cannot have the arrests yet until everything's set up. It wouldn't matter if you had all the evidence in the world if you don't have the right structure in place. So let me go through this. The FBI investigates federal crimes. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, prosecutes those federal crimes. Federal judges adjudicate the criminal cases. Now, think about this. If you have all the evidence in the world, but the FBI is not going to investigate, it does you no good. This is what happened with Clinton. We have all the evidence. The evidence is there. Anybody can see it. But because the top level of the FBI was corrupt, it didn't get investigated like it should have been. Why not? Because they wanted to protect her. And so it doesn't do any good, no matter how much evidence you have, if the FBI isn't going to investigate it. And then the next thing is you've got the Department of Justice. Okay, so let's say that you've cleaned out the FBI, which we really have, and we've had a lot of people fired from that. I'm going to do a video one day on that, because I'm going to show you in black and white, or maybe color, we'll see, just how many of these people have been fired. I mean, it's incredible. And when you start looking at the chain of command, it is all of the top people. So when people say, oh, nothing's happened, I'll believe it when I see it. Look at what's already happened. It's amazing to see how many people have been pushed out, forced out, or suddenly retired. You know, Because they didn't. They were forced out. They had to resign because of everything that's coming out. So the FBI, for the most part, has been cleaned. Then you have the Department of Justice. So even if you have a clean FBI and they gather all the evidence together and they hand it on a silver platter to the Department of Justice, if the Department of Justice is dirty, you're not going to get a prosecution. What good would it have done if we would have had all the evidence in the world and presented it to the Obama DOJ about Hillary Clinton? It would never have gotten to prosecution. As Comey said, no prosecutor in their right mind would have prosecuted it. Well, he was right in at least one way. No prosecutor in their right mind would stand up against her and would risk being Arkansided to take her to court. But that was back in Obama's time. Things have changed. There's a new sheriff in town. And so now things are different. And Trump's people have cleaned out the FBI. Jeff Sessions did a lot of cleaning of the DOJ too, by the way. And so things are getting set up. This was one reason why they tasked Huber with the job, because it has been kept off the records, out of the limelight. It has not been political. It's not been leaked. Everything's been happening like it was supposed to happen with a decent, honest DOJ. So this is how it's supposed to work. We're not supposed to know about their investigations until they have the indictments. And if the indictments are sealed, you're not supposed to hear about them until they're ready to unseal them. So then, once you have the DOJ clean, then the evidence that the FBI came up with will be given to the prosecutors at the DOJ, and the DOJ prosecutors can then present their cases. But the problem is, you've got to have good judges in there. And right now, some of the judges that are there, leftovers from Obama, are still iffy, but a lot of them are being replaced. And that's why you've heard Trump say that he's replacing judges at warp speed, if you want to say it that way, faster than ever before. Why? Because he's getting things ready. He's getting everything in place. He's got to have the honest judges in there to do that judgment. Otherwise, they're just going to get off on technicalities. And this is why we haven't seen the arrests yet. I'm sorry it's taken so long. I wish it were faster. Believe me, I wish it were so much faster. I'd love to see all these people behind bars, but we just can't do it that way. It's got to all be done according to process, and all the players that are going to be dealing with this have to be honest, good people who are going to judge rightly and fairly. And no matter how bad a crime these people have done, and they have done some pretty bad crimes, we still have to have the rule of law. Because if we don't apply, it's like free speech. If free speech doesn't apply to everybody, if it only applies to the people who say things you like, then it's not free speech. And if the rule of law only applies to people you like, then it's not the rule of law. The rule of law has to apply equally to everyone, or it is not the rule of law. Back to the FBI and all of this, and this Uranium One. Go through this and read this, because the Uranium One is the heart of what's going to be happening very soon. It connects them all together, and it shows very clearly that they're all guilty. If you don't know what the Uranium One deal was, make sure you get informed on it so you'll be ready when all this starts coming out, and you'll understand what's going on. Okay, back to this. Anyway, the vault. You can go to all these different things. Remember, on the FBI site, there's press releases. You can see what kinds of things they're doing. It's very interesting to keep track of them. And the DOJ has a similar thing, so you can do that there too, just to keep track of what's going on. This is the records between FBI and Christopher Steele, part 01 of 02. Now, I didn't even look at 02 because 01 is all redacted. It's got this, and then after that, pretty much every page is blank. Yep, blank, blank. Yep, blank, more blank, more blank. So, not really helpful on that. You know, that's kind of how it works when you're doing investigations and looking up stuff and digging. Okay, in the process of digging, I came across this Abscam. Now, I was in my teens and 20s when this went on, so I really was not very political at the time, and I didn't know anything about it until I read it just the other day. So I wanted to share this with you in case you haven't seen it before. I got into this and I'm like, what in the world are all these handwritten letters? Public response regarding Abscam, wake up and get going, a job well done, and I love it. Your investigation of the Congress is the best thing the FBI has ever done. And I'm like, wait, I got to find out what this is. So I went over here, and yes, the Wikipedia does have a page on Abscam. Be aware that when you read Wikipedia that it is a left-wing publication. Okay? Although anyone can change it, they have some certain guidelines that if it is changed so it's too conservative, they have this magic bot that will go in and it will lock it until it can be checked by a regular person. So it is not nearly as objective as you might think. It has a definite bias. I just want to tell you that before you get into it. But if you go through this, it does give a good overview of what happened with it. It was a sting operation in the late 1970s and early 80s that led to the convictions of 7 members of the United States Congress, among others. I just think it was very interesting to go through and look at this because as big as this was, more than 30 political figures were investigated, and among those, 6 members of the United States House of Representatives and 1 United States Senator were convicted. So it was big at the time. As big as that was, what we're going to be seeing in the near future is so much bigger. So this is another good read for you to go through, and you can find out what they did. They set it up, and it was the first time that they used video surveillance because, back then video cameras were not very common. And so they did use video surveillance on this. And then, of course, a lot of the Democrats complained because they said it was entrapment and that it wasn't right. But here are the convictions. U.S. Senator Harrison A. Williams, U.S. House of Representatives Frank Thompson, John Jenrette, Richard Kelly, Raymond Lederer, Michael Ozzie Myers, John M. Murphy. Hey, what do you know? Look at that. D, D, D. Oh, there's one R, D, D. Interesting, huh? Now remember, the deep state is not just Democrats. There are a lot of Republicans that are caught in that too, so part of it. And then here's some other government officials that were taken up in it. And then they also include in this people who were not picked up, who they tried to see if they would take the bait, but they didn't take it. This guy right here, Larry Pressler, he was from South Dakota, and he says, when Senator Pressler was told Walter Cronkite referred to him on the evening news as a hero, he stated, I do not consider myself a hero. What have we come to if turning down a bribe is heroic? I love that quote. Oh, anyway, so these are the ones that did not fall for it, and so they were not part of it. But anyway, and there's the conclusion. It went back and forth. It resulted in some guidelines here for the FBI, and it was used in popular culture in several places. But again, I didn't know anything about it until I had read this the other day, so I don't know. Things go on. But again, this was something the FBI did. Now, the FBI, as I said, the majority of the FBI are good people and they really are trying to do what's right. Unfortunately, they've had these people at the top that were not interested in that. And they had a totally different vision of what was right. So if you read through this and you see what happened then, just keep in mind that a lot is going to be happening in the very near future that's going to make this look like nothing. So as big of a deal as it was back then, it's going to be bigger now. And we will have some very important people whose names will be on indictments. And it's going to be to the extent where there are going to be some openings in the House of Representatives and likely some senators too. So it's going to be very interesting what happens when the new Congress convenes, because I think some of their members won't be there to take their place. I wanted to especially show you about the vault because a lot of people don't know about it. It's got some interesting stuff in it. If you like history and you like looking into kind of conspiracy stuff, there's a lot of stuff in there that you can read through. Don't forget to go to my Patreon page because I've got articles there that I'm putting in every day when I do my research. And remember, help me make it to 40,000 by Christmas. I want to have 40,000 subscribers by Christmas time. That's my Christmas wish. Please help me get to that. So I want to say thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.